If you're just starting out in data science or data analytics, the first thing I would do is avoid installing Python on your computer. While Python is a pretty important tool for data professionals, it also requires a good amount of setup to begin coding, and a lot of that work isn't really necessary for beginners. So instead of getting bogged down and setting all those different things up, I would recommend that you use Google Colab, which is a free web-based coding tool. So to begin using Colab, you'll need to first have a Google account. If you don't have one, you'll need to go to accounts.google.com and create an account by clicking on the create account down here, and then just click for myself. And then after entering in your information here, you'll then have the account you can use. Once you've signed into your Google account, we're then going to go over into your Google Drive. So you can do that by either typing in drive.google.com, or you can click on these 9 dots and then click on your drive. Once you make it to your Google Drive, you can then set up Colab by clicking on new, and then going down to the bottom here where it says more, and then you can either click on Google Collaboratory if it shows up here. If it doesn't, then we'll want to click on Connect More Apps, and then we can type into this search box and we'll just start typing Colab until Collaboratory shows up. And then we can see it here in the options. So I'm just going to click on that, and then it's going to ask us to install. And again, this isn't going to install anything on your computer. This is just going to install it within your Google account so you can use it online. So if we click install, it says we need permission to continue installing here. So we'll do that. I'll select my Cells to Code account. And then we have now connected it to Google Drive. So now once I click done, I can then close this window. I can now open up a collaboratory file by clicking on new, and then going down to more and Google Collaboratory. You can also come down into this files area of your drive, and if you right click anywhere, you can see the same menu. It's a little hard to see in some points, but if I click more and then Google Collaboratory, once I click this is going to launch a notebook, which is basically a combination of text and code. And that's helpful because we can then write Python code, and we can also write text into this same notebook. And that text can be a lot of different things. It can basically be notes for us or for somebody else that's maybe reading through our code. It can also be different headings to kind of break up our code to make it a little easier to read. For this example, I don't want to necessarily start too much from scratch. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to import another notebook I've already written. And if you want to follow along, I'm actually going to put the link for this notebook that we're going to use in the description. So we just need to go up to File, and then we can click on Open Notebook. And then once I've done that, I want to go over and I want to click on GitHub over here at the top. And then I'm going to paste the URL on this first line and then click on the magnifying glass. Now this will pull up and this will open up this notebook. And so you notice here that in the notebook, it says, welcome to Google Colab. And so what this is this is a text cell. If I double click on this, you can see that I've written in the text here. It has a lot of the tools that you would see in a standard word editor. So you got bolding, italicizing. You'll also notice I put a hashtag here at the front, or a pound sign, and that basically makes it a heading. And so then as we look over here on the left side in the table of contents, you can see we now have a section for welcome to Google Colab. So again, this is a way that you can organize your notebooks. To close out of this text editing box, I now need to run this cell. And the way I can do that is pressing Shift and pressing Enter. And that will then take me down into this next cell. Now a cell within a notebook is just any of these blocks. So we have this very first one, which is a text cell. If I wanted, I could press here to add another text cell. I can then delete that by pressing on the trash can over here. If I added another text cell and I wanted to move it, I could then use these arrows to move it around in the notebook as well. These other cells here are code cells. And these are blocks where you can type in Python code. And just like with a text cell, if we hold down Shift and press Enter, we can run that cell. You also see a warning here that's given that just says that this notebook was loaded from GitHub and that it might be able to access things on your Google Drive. I'm not pulling anything from the Google Drive. I'm going to click Run anyway. And now you'll see my code will run. You see that the circle is circling around here. Now it's done. You see a green check mark has appeared here. And there's a number 1 inside of the square brackets. And what that means is that this block of code was the very first block to run in our Google Colab. I'm not going to dive too much into what this code does here in this video, but something I want to point out is that this first cell that we ran was basically importing other people's packages of code. And these packages are things that if you installed Python from scratch, you would have to go and set up manually and set up yourself. But in this case, we were able to just go in and immediately pull those packages in. And the advantage of that is now if we run this next cell, again, we can run that with Shift Enter. You can also use Control Enter, or you can click on the play. So now you see that that has run. And then if I now run the next cell, you'll then see that what I have done here in the previous cell by using this pd.read_csv, I've loaded something into this object called data. And you can see the first 5 rows of the data that I loaded. The last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to run this last cell. And what this is going to do is this is going to take our median house value column in our data set, so this one here, and then it's going to create a histogram plot out of that. Again, we're not necessarily learning the Python code here, but what I wanted to show you was how fast it is to get up and running with Google Colab. So now I'm going to click Control Enter in this case, and now you see the median house values for all of the rows in our data set here in a histogram. So now we've run all of the cells that we had existing in this notebook. If we wanted to add more cells, we could either press Shift Enter, which would run the cell and then add a new one, or you can click on the plus code here, which will add more code cells. Now, before you go off and start performing awesome analysis in Colab, I want to show you just a few things here with the interface. So the first one is in this cell here, you notice we pulled in a California housing train.csv, and you might have been wondering where that came from. Well, if I click on this file icon over here, I can see a layout here for a file structure, and you see something called sample data. And so this sample data is referring to the same thing here in the text. If I open this up, you'll see that there is the California housing train data set here. And so if I actually right click here, I can actually copy the path. And then if I were to then paste that in, I'm just gonna add a new code cell and just show you. So now if I paste that in, you'll see that the path for that, or the location of that file, is that content sample data folder. So let's go ahead and delete that. So you can see all of your different files here. If you want to use your own data sets, you can actually click here to mount your Google Drive. And what that's going to do is connect your personal Google Drive and any CSVs or any data you have in your drive to Colab so that you can then pull them from there. So if we did that, we would then connect to Google Drive, give it permission. Once that's done running, you now see that I have a folder called Drive. And now within my drive, I can put in any CSVs or data that I want, and I can then pull them into Colab just like I did with this California housing train. If this video helped you out, make sure to hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.